Hello and welcome to the Acuta AOSC Super Series live on the iRacing Esports Network and live on Apex Racing TV. We are preparing for round 15 of this 16-round championship. It is the penultimate round here from New York State. It is Watkins Glen. My name is Sam Fitzpatrick, and alongside me in the comms box today is Daniel Leet and Matthew Norris. Scott Newton on the production. And guys, it's been a fantastic season so far. Daniel, we've seen utter domination from James Scott at the start and in recent rounds as well. And he's certainly looking very strong going into the final couple of rounds of the championship. It seems like he's already got one hand on the trophy.
Yeah, good evening, Sam and Jane, Matthew, and all the viewers tuning in. Great to have you back in again for the second to final round of the championship. As you say, it's been fantastic watching throughout the course of this championship. James Scott, though, he's got everything to play for here. He's got a fantastic gap advantage over Andrew Gilliam. We've still got plenty to play for, a little lower down in the order, but he's potentially looking here, if he can get a really good solid result tonight, at maybe wrapping this championship up one round early.
Yeah, that could potentially be the case. No, this Watkins Glen circuit, we're not using the boot layout today. We're actually using the short layout. It's the NASCAR layout plus the chicane. I mean, high speed circuit. The race is going to be run at an incredibly high speed and potentially pretty high attrition as well with the nearby walls.
Absolutely, mate. It's going to be really fast. Only a short 38 lapper here tonight, so it's going to be tight and twisty. A bit like Lime Rock last week, but it'll be super fun to watch at the best version of Watkins Glen going around.
Absolutely. So we should give a big thanks to all the sponsors for this championship, because these are the guys who make this series possible and make it as good as it is. So Acuta Solutions, the title sponsor, who provide rigging hardware and safety equipment. Next over Racing, who work on racing and flight cockpits. Butzi Racewear, who provide custom sim racing and real racing gear as well. You can have your name on it and everything. Motum Simulations, who have VR racing centres across Australia. Really something cool to check out. Night Rider Designs, if you're looking to create some liveries on iRacing for yourself or for maybe a team, they're certainly the guys to go to. Wolf Graphics, who do personalized stickers and signs. Sam Blacklock Media will be doing the race highlight phases. You can check them out on the AOSC Facebook page after this race, and also Race Management Service. Thanks for them for helping up set up these sessions. Of course, thanks to the admins as well. They can certainly take the majority of the responsibility and the drivers as well, because this should be a very good race coming up. We are currently in a 20-minute qualifying session. Only one split for today, so pre-qualifying wasn't too important. Everyone has got into this top split for this race. And yeah, we're currently in a 20-minute qualifying session. On pole position at the moment is Jordan Ross, which is quite unusual, Daniel, to see Ross up there. I don't believe he's got a pole position this season.
No, he hasn't had one yet, although earlier in the championship, he was very, very consistent when he was with ERT prior to switching over to Synergy Sim Racing. So it's good to see him returning to a little bit of form at the moment. He's got himself about 500ths of a second gap advantage at this point over Jack Boyd, who, again, having a fantastic run for Gone Motorsport. Our current championship leader, James Scott, just a fraction behind both of those two in third position. And don't forget, we saw last week, recently just changing teams from ERT, switching over to Altus, continuing on that good form we've already had.
Here are the points then, just as a reminder. James Scott leading the way, 3,500 points at the moment for him. Andrew Gilliam there with 2,900. However, Gilliam has got some pretty bad job scores, so he should be able to bring that gap closer. Should Gilliam, as his job scores do start taking effect. However, he's still quite a long way behind Scott at the moment. Needs to be a phenomenal few rounds. And there is John Ross, Mr. Consistent so far this season for Synergy Sim Racing, up there in third position. We kind of had this same situation last week, didn't we, Noe, where we got this very short lap. You can get loads and loads of laps in, but it's still really tricky to kind of set that perfect lap in these cars.
Yeah, it's only a minute 8, so it's a bit longer than 50 odd seconds we had last week at Lime Rock. But it's very. I'll say it again, tight and twisty. That's the hallmark of these American layouts, and you've got to work extremely hard to get that lap time in and not be balked on your lap. But then it's only a short lap, and that real estate's quite congested on that track map.
Yeah, look at that. Spaces out of premium. To be fair, we've got a few drivers, including Jordan Ross, who's just about to start another lap. Actually, with quite a bit of clean air, so he's absolutely laughing his head off at the moment. As that's a spin, not lifting out of that one bit though was Jack Boyd, who's been ever so impressive recently. And this could be another good lap as well. Personal best sector 1. It's a decent sector 2 as well.
Yeah, doing a really good job here. See him fire down into turn 6. The car looks really good at this point, using a little bit of curb, setting up nicely for that final run through the corner. If anything, the hard part here is he doesn't have the aid of the draft, which is key to getting the best out of these lap times. You can see a lot of cars stacking up right behind him, going to take advantage of that, as we see Shea Thomas right behind getting a little bit of an advantage from that. But he needs to find himself a drafting partner here to try and find that little bit extra time that he needs to potentially take it to Jordan Ross and maybe put that Glen Road Motorsports car up on pole position.
And it's not much. It's literally a fraction of a second splitting them at the top. So he needs that toe.
Yeah, an extra tenth and a half is absolutely invaluable. You can see how close it is all the way down the order, hundredths of a second separating each driver. It's perhaps surprising that Ross has got that 1.5 of a second advantage. So personal best sectors being put out on circuit at the moment, but you can see it's pretty sunny. The track may well be warming up, especially with so many drivers on this very short circuit. iRacing does simulate the way that the car's just running over this track, causing a lot of friction with the surface, and it does heat up the track quite a bit. So I'm just wondering, perhaps as the session goes on, we are in the last minute pretty much now, whether there's going to be a whole lot of improvement possible for these drivers.
It's going to be a bit of a struggle. I think at the moment, probably the best placed is Jordan Ross, who we can see on an outlap, currently working his way up through the S's at this point. So he's got plenty of time to maybe pull this one back in. But for a lot of the guys, if they can't get those drafts advantage, they're going to really struggle to vault those times up a little bit further. Brian Borg coming across the line, doing a good job. Jack Boyd not quite able to extend or shorten up that gap, to first position in Jordan Ross there. So he's got one more opportunity here to unleash this lap.
Yeah, still potential for a little bit more improvement. There's Jamie McKnight as well in 16th place. Hasn't been a great few qualifyings for McKnight. Just a little bit of improvement. He's just behind Stokes and Taliancic and McMullen. You can't see those 4 drivers, and you think the quality of this field. I mean, we've got a slightly lower turnout today, but it is still absolutely exceptional, the drivers we've got. As a couple more drivers as well approaching line. Here's Danny Davison sliding it around the far corner, but that looks pretty good. It all looks under wraps. And can he improve? Currently in 4th position. And it's not an improvement point. In fact, it was an improvement, but only by a couple of hundredths of a second. It's not enough to move him up. Here comes Boyd is on a very good lap. Couple of personal sectors. Is this going to be enough? He approaches the line, cuts the beam, and it's not enough. He's still a tenth of a second behind. It wasn't quite a personal best third sector. Maybe if it was, that would have been enough to overhaul the difference. So Boyd not quite with enough time. You can see everyone else behind struggling to improve on their lap times.
Yeah, a little disappointing there. Scott Gamble not quite able to do it. We've still got James Scott coming across the line, unable to improve. Craig Jones a little bit better for himself there. Promotes that car up into the 28th position. So not a bad effort for Craig. And I think that will be the last of our cars to cross the line.
Yeah, I think so. That will be everyone crossed the line. I mean, it's such a quick lap, isn't it? That's within about a minute, everyone has crossed the line. That's out on circuit, baby. But unlike Spa, when we got to wait a little while. But really tricky first corner. I reckon this is from what we've seen in the last few months with the new tyre model. This is possibly the toughest first corner in all of iRacing, because it is so narrow up the hill. It's so easy to hit the wall, and then you have a check blockage. We do have the option for a safety car, but I mean, disaster really can spell round this Watkins Glen circuit on this opening lap. Of course, if we do have any restarts as well when the tyres cool down a little bit, it could be a big problem. But here we are then, got the grid lining up, and from what I believe is the first time Jordan Ross on pole position. I might be wrong, but I believe he has not been on pole position all season, and he's on pole by 1/10 of a second at the moment. Jack Boyd in second place, improved late on, but Boyd looking really strong as he has done for previous rounds. James Scott, championship leader, starts in third. Then it's Dane Davison. Watch out for Andrew Gilliam, a little bit of a disappointing qualifying for him. Then it's Adam Briggs, Tom Freer, Bradley Ritu, Brian Borg, Ross Rizzo, Thomas Hines, Scott Gamble in 12th place, and it's Marlon McMullen, Michael Talianchich, Carl Stokes, Jamie McKnight, Greg Sharp, Blake Delaney, Rob Bowden, Shay Thompson, Jacob Knight, Josh Morgan, Jamie Stovall, Jet Bennett, David Kimman, Marcy Hansen, Jamie Dyke, Craig Jones, Michael Whiting, Luke Holland, Brody Scott, Todd Parks, Andrew Modric, Nathan Tregarthen, David Coleman, Simon Bayer, Jackson Barry, Chris Barnes, Matt Morris, Mark Dial, Blair Walton, Roy Clark, Tony Gaffer, Dave Baldock, David Walk, and I believe that is the entire 45 car order for this penultimate round of the championship. We've just got a couple more drivers, I think, to get on the grid, but I'm saying pretty much everyone is on the grid. Maybe just got a couple of drivers near the back, I think. Maybe the safety car, of course, won't be taking the grid either. But what can John Ross do from the pole position? Really important that he does hold this lead. It's difficult to tell how tricky overtaking is going to be in this round of the championship. But the green lights for the penultimate time this season are about to illuminate this Watkins Glen circuit. Ross versus Boyd. And away we go at Watkins Glen. It's a strong start for Ross to keep the lead seemingly. It might be a good opportunity for Davison, in fact, from fourth position. There goes Scott as well, just trying to hold off on the inside of the circuit. Good start for Tom Freer to get past Adam Briggs. That's for sixth position as they all go double file through the first couple of corners. Side by side with Freer still, and he's lost that place actually back to Adam Briggs, who just moves back ahead. Boyd, though, is looking really racy in these early stages. He knows that this could be his best chance at the overtake, and he's right behind his rival. Scott nowhere near enough to make an attack, but just doing enough there was just the slipstream advantage for Boyd. Wasn't enough to get close enough.
No, it was a really solid jump from both cars off the front row. Fantastic jump also for James Scott, able to vault that car up one position. But both Ross and Scott did a really good job going very defensive early on. So you can see Davison just hunting behind James there, looking for an opportunity to pass down into six. Not quite going to get it done, but the guys obviously with tyre pressures coming up, they're going to want to make the moves as quick as possible to get them sealed away. Look for the next opportunity that they can get. Further down the field though, everyone else looks to have got back through. No major issues there at all.
Yeah, very few problems so far. I'm seeing Dave Kimman up 3 places, Shay Thompson down 4 places. Oh, this could be 4 wide. That is very close, and there's going to be contact now, and that's Greg Sharp. He had a really good qualifying to Sharp, one of his best of the season. Oh, and we've got cars all sliding back onto circuit, and then almost a driver as well making contact, I think, going through turn 2. That may have been Blake Delaney, I think, just getting shoved out and then losing the momentum down this back straight.
Yeah, and once you lose that momentum as well, you struggle a lot to try and either keep the cars behind you and then gain the forward momentum that you need to go through. Some too wide action as the guys file down through in a loop there. And we're talking about this a little bit before we went to air, and that's going to be one of the key areas to try and get the most through the cars, get them floated over through the curbs, quick left, right, and then set up for that turn 6 hairpin.
So certainly no calming down so far near the back of the order. And everyone's pretty much staying within slipstream range of one another. The slipstream is so powerful around this circuit. We've got kind of 3 long straights. Perhaps not quite as powerful as it is in GT cars, because of course this section of the circuit, particularly in GTEs or prototypes, easy flat out, and you can really gain a good advantage single seaters as well, obviously. But these cars are going to have to lift, I believe, around this part of the track. But then once you get onto the back straight, you can really start to gain a few kilometers an hour. And that is what Ross Vito is perhaps suffering from at the moment, because he's got Thomas Hinz right behind. But Hinz, once again, the final chicane, it's so tricky to actually overtake there because it's not much of a braking area. However, you can get a much better line. That's what Hinz did there. Do get a little bit of a wake as well through this through these long radius corners. And Rizzo holding on. Drive through penalty, by the way, for Jacob Knight. That was on lap 2. I wonder if that was maybe for the little bit of contact we saw down at turn 1.
Yeah, so that'll be a little unfortunate for him. He'll drop a long way down as a result of that. Knight currently down in that 24th position. So by the time he comes through, we'll expect to see him well down at the very bottom end of the train. Ross Rizzo, though, not going too defensive at this point. He's going to have to be careful here. It looks like Hinz going to get that car down the inside quite nicely. Mullen closes up now our current 5th position in the championship, gaining more and more points. But Mullen here definitely be looking for a run down through that inner loop. And as we saw the lap before with Thomas Hinz, definitely 2 schools of thought for these guys to go through. Brake a little bit easier, get the nose dialed in and gain that mid-corner speed. First, the guys maybe trying to defend, just carry that little bit extra and sacrifice a bit on the exit.
Yeah, so tricky in these cars. Oh, that was nearly an effort there from McFarlane.
With the cars also evenly matched heading into these couple of corners, it's definitely going to be a struggle to get the car by if you aren't in that slipstream toe.
Yeah, absolutely. Overtaking too fair has been at a premium so far, despite all the slipstream, but perhaps just not with the big braking areas we need. Gilliam currently in 5th place, top 9 by the way, exact same order as they were at the start of this. We've got a few gainers, Stable, Bennett, Gibbons, but certainly at the front, pretty much no changes so far in this order. I'm just wondering maybe if they're just being patient at the moment, thinking about the tyre life, because I assume the undercut shouldn't be much of an advantage. We were speaking last week to James Scott, and he was saying how, because with Lime Rock Park at least, but this is a very similar story with the short circuit, because the circuit's so short, the undercut, you just spend that outlap trying to get your tyres up to temperature. So that outlap isn't actually any faster. If anything, the overcut could be an advantage. So I just wonder if maybe Gilliam's thinking, save these tyres and maybe go a bit longer than his rivals ahead.
Yeah, it's probably not a bad way to go, especially with the draft being as key as it is. I would expect we'll see a lot of strategies similar to what we'd see at the likes of the Le Mans circuit, for instance, where you're utilising that draft. These guys will look to come in pairs if they can get the team cars close enough. So for the likes of Gilliam, he'll potentially want to come in around the same time Tom Freer does, and those two can utilise that draft to pull themselves up a little bit further while bringing those tyres up at the same time. So a couple of interesting ways that the guys are going to have to work around that for the guys that are single car teams or very well spread out. It's a bit of a roll of the dice. Where do you come in? When do you do it? Further down the order, however, we're seeing Kyle Stokes now setting up a good run on the back of Scott Gamble. These guys are scrapping over the 13th position. You just see there, Stokes throws the nose out. Don't think he's quite going to have the move to get it in through that chicane, and just slots back into that position there.
Be interesting to see if he can get that run coming through. Nope, not there. He'll have to try for the dive at turn 1, and pit window actually opens at lap 10, so there's still a couple more to run before the strategy will come into it.
Getting closer up at the front. Seems to be getting a slight 3-car pull away. We saw Davison nearly overtake Scott. It was a really good launch off the line for Davison on lap 1. Ever since then, though, I think he's just been dropping back on that last lap. Ross on minute 9.6. Boyd a 0.5. Scott a 0.5. Too bad Davison was a 0.5 as well. And then behind that, Gilliam with a 0.8. Gilliam just not with the same pace. Remember, this is the guy who won at Belle Isle earlier on in the season. Rizzo has had a small issue, although actually that was just a connection issue. Popped back up. But this is slightly unusual territory for Ross. He has been very competitive, as we've already said so far this season. but leading a race. And of course, Jack Boyd as well, potentially his first opportunity at a race win as well. He got second place, I believe, at Phillip Island. But that was when Scott was pulling away massively. This is a very different scenario for him.
Yeah, it's actually been really interesting to see the development of all these guys over the course of this championship season, and how we saw a lot from James Scott early on, took those 4 back-to-back consecutive wins, and everyone else has really sort of risen to the challenge and started coming on very, very strong. For Ross, he'll be absolutely loving the fact being out in front. I know it's been quite a while, not only since we've seen him in the Synergy cars, obviously making that shift through the course of the championship, but yeah, it was only a couple of seasons ago he was one of the key runners up in that championship contention, and he's doing it again this time. He's well up in the points, currently sitting in third place at this point, and continuing to gain those points. Jack Boyd, though, he's really come out of nowhere this season, and to find himself up in that second position, not that far off the likes of Jordan Ross, ahead of James Scott at this point, he'll be absolutely loving that. As we see him move here, Bradley Ratu getting that car down the inside of Tom Freer and moves up into the 7th position.
It's quite generous there from Freer. That was very simple for Ratu, who moves up into 7th place. The only change we've got currently out of the top 9 drivers. And I wonder if Freer perhaps feels like might have a good chance at catching up. There is Gilliam, and I think Gilliam's going to lose a place here to Adam Briggs. Contact between the two of them, and Gilliam's going to lose more than 1 place. He's going to lose 3 positions, I believe, just behind Freer, and now the redress straight away from Briggs. And well, that's infuriating for those 2 guys because they've got the same battle now, but they've lost 2 places, and now I think Briggs is going to lose another position.
Well, yeah, and that's the awkward thing, is obviously he's done the right thing. He's redressed that position. That'll definitely be looked upon favourably from race control, but in doing so, it immediately put him under attack from Brian Borg and Thomas Pins, who were having a fantastic scrap just before that. As we cut to the replay, we'll check out how this one was set up. It started through the back end of turn 5, as we were right on board. We couldn't see the run that he was able to get. For Briggs here, comes down the inside with a huge amount of headway, just not quite able to get that car up alongside. As you see, that little bit of contact, left front, right rear, and away she went.
What's your view on that one? I'll say no.
I was going to say it was just a little bit too ambitious, that move. It looked like it was a fair way back.
Yeah, perhaps was a little bit too much for Ford. Close again. And with Ross struggling a bit, boy can't get the move done, and this is just a biting Scott. I've seen this so many times, particularly earlier on in the season, where Scott's just so patient. So patient, but it's almost arrogance, dare I say, where he's so confident in his own abilities that he will eventually come out on top, that he doesn't feel the need, and that's a fantastic characteristic to have, where you can think that straight as the race goes on rather than panicking. But Ross seems certainly 3rd best out of this trio at the moment.
Yeah, and we say 3rd best, but I mean, realistically, he's managed to now extend a little bit of a gap over Davison. He's broken that draft for Davison, who you can see just in the back of frame in 4th there. But he's gained time on both our leaders out in front. The lap time is very, very good. Obviously, a bit of an advantage from the use of the draft there, but he's not giving anything away at this point, saving the tyres, setting himself up for a really good run through to finish out this race. They've still got the pit stop yet to come, however. So we could see him maybe even jump if he's able to save that little bit of fuel. He's not going to be stationary anywhere near as long as these guys.
Wonder if we could see some back markers as well a little bit later on in the race. I don't know if we could perhaps get the track map up, but you can see these guys, I mean, that's half a lap. They're only 30 seconds behind, but we've already separated this order by about 2/3 of a lap, and at Lime Rock it was a bit there. We saw the gap between the top 2 ebb and flow, and I think today it perhaps it's going to be even more, because the top 4 drivers are so quick compared to the guys outside the top 20. That's they're absolutely romping up to them.
Yeah, definitely. And we've also got a lot of new guys up that we haven't potentially seen through the course of this championship as well. So we do run the 2 splits throughout this one, and with everyone being condensed into 1 split tonight, giving us a really good opportunity to see the strength of a lot of the guys that may not necessarily make the broadcast, but be able to put on a fantastic run. Further up here, Thomas Hinz continuing to stay in the action. He's got Brian Borg right ahead of him. Ross Rizzo closed back in. And looks like we've also got Mullen Scotty Gamble getting into it as well. So really good little trainer car starting to form up.
Awesome to see so many teams being represented in this particular battle. But it's odd that we're seeing this at the moment now. That Briggs is kind of falling back into these guys. Remember, this is the guy who was fighting for 5th place earlier on. He looked faster than Gilliam, and now, ever since that contact, he just doesn't seem to have the same confidence as he did earlier on.
Sometimes it happens, like you'll get knocked around and you'll lose a couple of spots and you just struggle to find your braking markers and all that sort of stuff again. Looks like Ian's he wanted that move. And yeah, sometimes it'll just happen, but he'll work himself back into it. He'll be alright.
Brian Borg once again having a good race. He got maybe 7th place last time. I feel like someone may have run out of fuel just in front of him. Maybe Jordan Rossi ran out of fuel in front of him on the last lap and he managed to gain some place. But Premier Racing Team, I think, have really improved. You can see McMullen as well up there in 12th place. You can see those guys they much came back into the fray. Were very successful, I believe, in the old supercars, but maybe not quite so much anymore. Borg versus Hinz. As there we go down the inside, and he just about gets it done. And now Borg, and we've got the spinner, and that is
Gamble.
Scott Gamble, who has spun into the wall.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there for Gamble, just caught up with trying to get the power down a little bit too hard there. Big move though for Ross Rizzo to get down the inside of Brian Borg with the crisscross, but he's going to come under attack here, and the 2 Premier Esports cars are going to be pushing to get that move done. But for Hinz, the kind of just allowed him a little bit of room here. He's able to continue through the inner loop here. But this top 5 this group of 5, sorry, very, very close together. Very unfortunate though for Gamble, who has been able to get that car rotated around and continuing it back on for the race.
He's still in 22nd place as Gamble, so not too bad for him. Contact Roy Clark, and that's going to be a slowdown. I think it could be worse than a slowdown. And don't hit that big ridge. Well, he's gone over it a little bit. That can be a lot worse. That's ruined a few gyros. 6 hours of the Glen in the past, where you didn't see that ridge until you've gone over it and absolutely broken the floor in 2 pieces. Clark drops down to 31st there.
Surprised he kept that pace, given that would have definitely given him a cut track. So he's been managed to stick with it. And he's applying to the 222 some pace.
Yeah, I thought he'd slow down more, as you say, but too bad for Clark. That's a late move, and it didn't work out on Scott. Now, of course, we always say this. We never know who's related to who. I don't know if Grady Scott is related to anyone, to James Scott. I doubt it. I imagine it's quite a common name in Australia, but I don't believe there is any relation between the 2 of them. Do you guys know if there's any relation between the 2 of them? I doubt it.
I'm going to say no there.
No, I think you pretty well hit the nail on the head there, Sam. No, I don't believe any relation at all, but yeah, good to see them going out there. Up front, the guys are starting to extend that little bit of a gap. Ross still putting in some fantastic lap times. A little bit slower out of the group of 3, but extending just a hair here now. 0.3 quicker, or ahead of Jack Boyd, and 0.9 ahead of Scott. So these guys making a little bit of room. They still haven't been able to fully drop Danny Davison in that EXG Motorsports car either off the back of this train. So starting to go along quite well for him. We did see the rotated car there. Scott Gamble has come down the lane, completed his stop for the night as well. So that's one of our first stoppers out of the way. 15-second stationary time, 46 transit. So just to keep that in perspective, we'll remember that for later on when the rest of the field does come down for their respective stops tonight as well.
was going to say that even though that battle seems to have intensified, they've actually gained a bit of room between each other. So between Ross and Boyd and Scott, it's all spread out just that little bit.
If you were Danny Davison in this situation, as actually Marlon McMullen comes into the pit, if you were Danny Davison in this situation, surely you'd come into the pits now, wouldn't you? Go for the mega undercut. I mean, these three drivers in front of you are so good. You got to go for something a bit out there, haven't you? And you think if you went into the pits now, had a good outlap, then that could be the race lead potentially. Is that not a bit obvious?
If you were Danny Davison, yes.
Look, I'd love to say yes, but looking at how heavily populated the circuit is tonight, and with the limited space to come back out once you do complete your stop, I think we're going to see these four push it as far as possible.
Oh.
Although that being said, Ross just makes a complete liar of me and that one in the lane. But I would have been looking to stay out as far as possible. We're looking at the track map here, and I don't know if we can get it up quickly, but there is not much of a gap anywhere for him to filter back in that's not going to put him in traffic. And the minute you get stuck behind those cars, you run the risk of falling further behind this battle that you're focusing on right now.
He could come out in 19, potentially. I don't know if he can get cameras on Ross. He's still... Oh, no, he's going to be stationed for another 9 seconds. He is right at the end of the pit lane, though, and you do cut the circuit slightly, but he might come out in that big group of cars of about 23 to 24, unless he's really quick. Now, this needs to be good from Ross. He might be able to stay ahead of them. Oh, I think he's going to be in the midst, to be honest. It's not too bad. He's behind one, but he's ahead of 3 of them. That could have been worse for Jordan Ross, but this is going to be an incredible outlap, though. And he's straight away onto the back of the 313 pan. He might get held up through the bus stop. Is there any way through? He's flashing the lights, but this is for position. And I think he is going to have to stay behind, and this is half a second straight away gone, and he's going to have to go offline as well. James Scott has come into the pits, and well, if Scott can get ahead of Ross, and that would be absolutely disastrous for Ross, who's still behind, and he's lost more time, and off the circuit as well, goes to 313, and that is exactly what you were talking about before there, Daniel, coming out into traffic, and it's ruined Jordan Ross's run, and I would be surprised if he's still ahead of James Scott.
Yeah, well, Scott's still stationary in the lane. We did see a huge rush of cars come through as well. Gilliam is in there, Briggs, Bowden, Barnett, Thompson,
Down.
as we see Scott now down and away. Just keeping an eye on Ross. He hasn't got ahead at this point. He's actually going to come in behind. So it's that lap traffic there has really hindered his run tonight.
Well, he lost 2 seconds, to be fair, in the pit stall. So he was 2.4 seconds longer stationary. He's now 2.1 seconds behind. So you would have probably been maybe 3 tenths ahead, but that's the fuel saving, and undoubtedly that traffic did hurt him as well. So disappointing for Ross. Arguably that pole position was not the place to be, because he's just giving a toe to everyone else. Now here is Jack Boyd. Has the undercut for Scott done enough? We expect a very quick pit stop for Jack Boyd, because he should have saved lots of fuel in the draft. And now Scott's got a little bit of traffic as well, just in front of him.
Yeah, and that's...
Sorry, I was going to say, don't forget Danny Davison in all this. He's been the quiet achiever at the back of them all, so it'll be interesting to see if he pops up and scares them at the top end of town.
So here comes Scott. Oh, he's almost off the circuit. Still stationary as Boyd. 14.2 seconds. I think that's 4 tenths longer than Scott, and that could be the gap that Scott needs. However, where is Boyd? He's behind. Scott takes the lead, and it was a slightly longer pit stop there for Jack Boyd. 14.2 seconds compared to Scott's 13.8 seconds. 4 tenths faster. The gap is 1.2 seconds between them. However, we've got a car in the wall now, and that looks pretty stationary there. No, this could be a safety car.
Yes. That was a bit concerning.
Who is that? Craig Jones, I believe.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the Mark 1 Esports car, and we're just hearing word too. Safety car has been deployed as well, so we will see the Acuta AOSC AMG out for a lap or two tonight while they get that one cleared away. But while those stops were being undertaken, Jordan Ross there. Really, really unfortunate. We see Stokes come down the lane as well for his stop, but it's been a pretty hard one there for Jordan Ross. Fantastic run though for James Scott. Now jumped to 2 positions to lead this race.
And Davison should stay in 4. Fia and Rizzo coming into the pits. I don't think this will hurt them too much because we want to get the pit stop done now because we're about to bunch up all the order. I don't think anyone's really necessarily benefited from this. So don't expect a big change of order due to the safety car because pretty much everyone has got their pit stops done. If this happened 10 laps ago, this would have been very interesting if you could get to the end of the race or not, as we still see that stationary car. It is the 113 of... actually, we're going to see a replay of how this all happens.
Oh,
Hold it.
that's unpleasant.
Wonder if you could get a replay of that from the action camera, Scott, because that might be a pretty good angle of just what happened between these two. As just tried to nip down the inside, there wasn't really much space.
No, and that's one of the unfortunate things, especially with the way you run up through the hill down here. It really sucks the cars out towards the outside of the lane, and you could see with Craig Jones trying to just follow the natural racing lines and right on board with him here. That EXG Motorsports car did drift quite a long way out, hits the barrier, ultimately ricochets into the back end of Jones there, and both. It was a very unfortunate finish for that one. Lucky for that EXG Motorsports car not to be stuck in the wall either, and was able to continue on there.
Brad Lindsay just mentioning how are they going to just ignore the Mustang in the red? We noticed it, Brad, but I mean it's just a normal Friday evening, isn't it? Say a Mustang stuck in the wall around Watkins Glen. Nothing too much to get excited about. So we've now got the pace car out. So good news for Nick Holster, gets to lead a few laps of this race. But apparently the pace car is going to be in on their side. Very slow pace car. Come on, Nick. I realise, Nick, you're not the best driver in the world, but I think you can drive a bit faster than this.
He will love that because Nick's not a fan of the GT cars. He loves his V8s, but doing a very, very good job. Make sure that field's all bunched up. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see him in there, though, at the conclusion of this lap to get underway. That being said, when that car does come in, we're going to have to keep an eye on where we see James Scott restart this race, because they have been given the authority to start going from the exit of turn 6. And then they can get some overlap started at the exit or entry to turn 7 as well. So be interesting to see where he decides to go. We have seen quite a few guys look to launch these cars very late. And with the flow that you have here, you want to keep them as square as possible to get the most out of the traction from them.
Jack Boyd will want to have a go here, and so will Jordan Ross. So this is going to be a restart to watch.
Across the tyres, as we mentioned earlier on, so cold right now, really cold, and it could cause some troubles up the hill. We saw a remarkably clean start earlier on. Scott apparently likes the cold tyres. We heard from him after Road Atlanta. He likes to slow down the order, and now there's a little bit of separation as well. I just wonder if there's a bit of concertina effect further down the order. As Scott still holding on. Imagine he's probably going to go just before the penultimate corner. That's probably going to be his best opportunity at making a break. Jack Boyd knows, as he knew at the race start as well, his best chance of this race victory is to overtake right away whilst everyone is very close. So we're about to get underway then for lap 22 of this penultimate round of the Acuta AOSC Super Series. And Scott does finally put his foot down. Boyd stays close. The gap between the two of them is 0.4 of a second. We are back racing here at Watkins Glen International Circuit. And like I said, 0.4 of a second. But how are the tyres going into this turn 1? Very neat and tidy for the leading few drivers. Scott able to pull out a little bit of a break with also seen Blair Walton as well coming to the pit. So he's just dropped down the order. And here comes Scott just over the crest. And it's a very responsible driving from him straight away. Got close battling between Tom Freer at the moment and Thomas Hines. That's for 8th place. As just pulling out as well as Hines behind Freer. But backs away again. There goes McMullen as well. He's battling with Rizzo at the moment. McMullen moving up into 11th place.
That was a really good start from everyone there. We've got some really nice gaps form away. The top three continue to extend very nicely off. A little surprised though, we didn't see the jump from the two XG Motorsport cars in 4th and 5th with Danny Davison and Brad Ratcliffe. They struggled to get those cars going, and you see that gap advantage just going off into the distance. They'll have to be careful though, because right behind Gilliam and Briggs have closed right up on them. The battle though further behind with Rizzo and McMullen still continuing on 2x2 on the run down into turn 1. McMullen's going to be able to get that one done down the inside, and Rizzo's going to have to be careful here because Brian Borgie's teammate closes in, and good jump there. Shea Thomas doing a very nice job as well, up a couple of spots from where he started, down in 19th at this point in time, but the laps were very, very good for him.
Highest gainer out of the entire field at mate is Nathan Tregarthen. He's up 11 places, up into 23rd. There he is. And we just see a little bit of a move as well further up. That was Carl Stokes moving past Josh Morgan. So Stokes down 6th place. I don't know why Stokes actually dropped down the order. He pitted pretty late actually, did Stokes. He on lap 19. I wonder if maybe the safety car hurts him at all, because certainly is a bit lower than he was earlier on, but should have good pace. Might be a fun end to the race for him. Briggs has just got past Gilliam. I'm just looking at the top of the screen, so that was a long time coming. Remember, they came together earlier on and had to let Gilliam back past it, did Briggs, but Briggs finally moves up into that 6th position. However, no, I don't think it's going to be easy for him to pull away now.
No, he's going to have to hang on here through the S's and on that long, well, I would call it the middle straight, but it's probably the first straight, and then into the bus stop.
So here was how it was completed. Ooh, mistake then from Gilliam. Dipped a wheel onto the grass. And Briggs, very much, thank you very much, because he's been waiting to overtake him for this entire race, and when an opportunity like that comes up, couldn't resist.
Well saved from Gilliam, I should say that, because you don't catch the car there often. Camber of the road sort of tips you into the fence.
So this is everyone queuing up behind Jim McKnight at the moment. McKnight is up 4 places. But it seems to be struck. Well, actually, I think he recently got past Brian Borg, so I think this battle might actually be more stuck behind Brian Borg at the moment. Stovall is interested in this. Also, I think it looked as though Bowden was the closest. Bowden is behind Borg, and also Stovall, really good pace up the top of the hill. Such a confident area of the circuit, and he carried a lot of speed onto the back straight, but there's no way past into the bus stop.
Yeah, and Stovall really lucky there not to see a repeat of what we saw for the Mark 1 car before for Craig Jones, with nearly clipping that inside fence as they ran through the top 4, or corner 4 there. So trying to really push the momentum of that car at the moment. He's got Jeff Bennett right in front of him. Those guys obviously drop back a little bit now from Rob Bowden and Brian Borg. So the battle a little further back starting to really heat up. A lot involved in that as well. We've got David Kimmett, we've got the recovering Scott Gamble, who, don't forget, had that spin earlier on, came in as one of our first pit stops as well. So he's working his way back through, down in 18th right now, but plenty of room and time left for him to gain another couple of spots here.
I wonder if Jet's just struggling with the balance of that car, as he seems to be a bit more defensive than and that gap increasing to Bowden ahead. So I wonder if he's struggling with that pace in that car.
He might be just a touch. The lap times are a little bit down comparative to those around him. The last time by was a 110. So not quite there. Obviously, the tyres still coming back up to the temp at this point, but keeping those eyes in the back of the mirror is definitely not going to be helping him right now.
Yeah, it's slipping back at the moment from Bowden and Borg, and still battling themselves. Here's the race lead. Scott has not pulled away. It's down to 0.2 of a second now. This is as close as Boyd has got for this entire stint. There you can see the gap just marginally falling down slightly on that last tour. And credit to Ross, who seemed to be the third fastest earlier on, but maybe that was just because of the draft. It'll be really interesting to get an interview with, hopefully, all of these top 3 later on in the race. Because Ross, yes, it didn't seem to have the match on these guys earlier on, but now he certainly does. Here comes the overspeed from Boyd. Going to have to force Scott offline, and this is probably Ross's best opportunity, and possibly the biggest worry for Boyd, because whilst he'd love to overtake, he's really under pressure from Ross, and if he does try to get the cut back a few too many times, I'm sure Ross will take advantage of that and probably wedge his car down the inside. Good run as well for Boyd. Again, he's making Scott go offline at almost all of these corners. Into the penultimate corner, round the outside goes Jack Boyd. Can he get the inside potentially for the final corner? He's keeping his car alongside. He's got the nose down the inside. Jack Boyd down in here at Watkins. However, Scott stayed ahead, just couldn't carry the speed, and now here is Ross round the outside going into turn 1. He's alongside Boyd. He's ahead of Boyd, but Boyd has the ideal line. Better exit again, and just Jack is a little bit too cautious seemingly on the inside of these corners. However, he hangs on, but brilliant defense there from Scott. That was really great to keep the speed round the outside through the final corner.
Yeah, and that was all set up from the run last time by up through right here into the inner loop here. We can see the run that Boyd got. Actually, probably the first little chink in the armour we've seen for James Scott, because he had a little bit of a tardy line getting in, ultimately a little bit slower through the turn 5 carousel here where we were going through, which then set him up for a run for Boyd down through 6 and 7. But the pace in the Gone Rogue Motorsports car for Jack Boyd at the moment, very, very good. We're seeing Jordan Ross have a little bit of a wiggle last time by through the S's, and ultimately now he has dropped back a fraction. But while that top 2 continue to scrap it out, he will come back up. Those 2 AXG cars, though, saying they had a little bit of a bad start on the restart, they're coming back into contention as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get to see both or all 5 of these cars really start to mix it up to finish this race.
Thing to say, and that's yeah, certainly a high possibility. Gillian would love to be in that battle, and after getting overtaken by Briggs with that mistake from Angie, he's back on the tail of the 72. He slides the turn 2. We could see the tyres really aging by the end of this race. We saw everyone pitting before lap 20, and so they're going to be pretty old tyres by the end of this event, and it's really tricky, that first part of the track. We've got a safety car deployed. Josh Morgan, I believe, is round at the final corner. I think he may have blown the engine, and the safety car is deployed for the second time.
This is going to spice the battle up.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
that's upside down.
We saw
not
the
much
guy
traction
in the
that way.
YouTube chat commenting too before about is there going to be a Mustang on its roof, and there it was. So really unfortunate for the guys there for Fishy Motorsports, and that car will be out for the remainder of the night. But how good is this though? Not just on 10 laps to go, another safety car to bunch this entire field up again.
Now, if you're at the back of the order here, you might want to take tyres, but I think everyone near the front, probably not. I think if this was like NASCAR, IndyCar, maybe you would want to take tyres in this situation, but because you would lose so many places. If you only had 10 drivers as well on the lead lap, then maybe tyres would be an option. But yeah, expect everyone just to bunch all up again. Who do you think this will benefit? No, because I mean, Boyd really did seem to have the momentum. Do you think this will help him, give him another chance off the restarts, or do you think Scott will be quite pleased that we've almost lost a couple of racing laps, a couple of laps where Boyd had the opportunity to overtake?
I hope it definitely spices it up. Jack Boyd needs to get rid of that rear vision mirror. He doesn't need to look behind him. He just needs to look ahead. look at James Scott's car and put the pressure on, because that is the only way he's going to get past. He knows he can do it. He was alongside a lap or two ago, so he knows he can. He's got the pace. He just needs to get the move done and be a bit bolder on those brakes.
So this is how we got this safety car, and it's another duo battle. Oh dear.
Yeah, it looked like just a simple, both cars trying to exit as hard as possible through turn 7. Not enough room given for both guys there, and ultimately into the wall. And then we see the conclusion of what happened to the Fishy Motorsports car ending up on its roof. Here's the onboard look from it, riding on board Nathan Tregarthen down around the outside. Just couldn't get the nose of that car out in time, and just collects that rear quarter of the Fishy Motorsports car and ultimately sends it up over on its roof. So not a lot of room for either of those guys. I don't think Tregarthen could have done much more. Maybe just lift the throttle just a hair there, but with the wash that Mustang had going out towards the fence there, not a lot that we could have seen Josh Morgan do more than that.
And it just rolls up into the fence, and that would be floating to the top of the tank in my book.
We've said it a few times before, and honestly, this is like a weekly or a racely thing. I do a lot of commentaries on the Esports Network, probably about probably only a couple of weeks, maybe 2 or 3 a week. But most races now, there is an incident where the damage model does not look particularly great, where a driver gets kind of hooked to a barrier or hooked to another car. So iRacing, please. So that doesn't look very good on the Esports Network when we're seeing incidents like that. However, I assume the pace car is going to be in this lap. There you go. And I'm not race control, by the way. But predicted that one correctly for once. So we will have 7 laps, a shootout, and once again, the safety car really slow. To be fair, tyres didn't seem to be a big issue last time. Everyone was so responsible, but no, it's just more pressure on Scott. And I mean, we're getting. This is penultimate round of the championship, Daniel. There's still opportunity for Scott to lose this title. Will that come into his mind? Will he think, I'll just, take the points? Or, I mean, I've asked this a lot of the time, but, we've seen the incidents that we've had today. There is a real opportunity that there could be a retirement for Scott today, and he really does not need that.
No, he doesn't need the retirement, but he's got points in the bag to play with. Ultimately, he can wrap this championship up at the conclusion of this event tonight. We've still got Bathurst next week, but for any of these drivers out here, they're not here to come second. They want to win this. They're going to put the hammer down. They're going to fight as hard as possible. So expect the fireworks from all of our guys within the top 10. You can see them just wiggling a bit, trying to get some heat into the tyres where possible. They are going to be going hard for this. Boyd's got everything to gain here. Scott got a lot to lose, but I don't think we'll see him back off at all. He'll be trying for the win. So
Scott went about here last time. I think he's holding on slightly longer. He's gone at a pretty similar spot, and that will be no surprise for Boyd. I just wonder, maybe it would have been worth Scott to mix it up slightly. The gap is 0.2 of a second. It's much closer than it was on the last restart. Jordan Ross not getting caught out either. And in fact, the entire top 5 much closer. The EXG drivers of Davison and Ritu getting very close. So up the hill we go for the 32nd time in this race. And Boyd taking a bit of extra curve. That seems to rotate the car slightly better. And once again, he might be able to force Scott offline going into the chicane. Boyd not quite close enough though. The 088 keeping on the racing line and will keep good pace through the inner loop. And now on this part of the circuit should be all right there, Scott. But this is a tight one.
Yeah, Scott doing a really good jump there. Gets the car nicely off. Gains a bit of momentum now to look forward. Both himself and Boyd starting to extend a little bit of a gap over Ross, but look for Ross to come back. They have dropped those EXG cars off just a touch, but if there is any form of contact, those guys are definitely going to be in contention here for a potential podium at this point as well.
I was going to say, from that restart, the EXG cars actually went with them a little bit, but you're right in there, Daniel, that they've dropped off now. Interesting to see if this battle pack keeps spicy as they keep climbing those S's, and now all 5 of them seem to be line astern.
Boyd just needs to. Boyd takes a lot more curve. You can just see how he turns in slightly earlier. I really think that is a good line for him. It does seem to yield him maybe a couple of hundredths of a second, but there's not much difference in it. So we go into the chicane once again, and the laps are just ticking down at the moment. And Boyd has yet to get close enough. This is so much like an oval race at the moment, where you're kind of just waiting for that small opportunity to get underneath your rival. You're close for lap after lap after lap, but there's just not quite a way through at the moment until he gets that slightly better launch from one of these corners leading up to a straight. But Boyd does look like the fastest driver out of, so he looked like the fastest driver in the first stint as well. And the gap is smaller again on this lap. It's down to 1.5 tenths of a second, and Boyd almost having a look at it. Scott didn't have to move offline. He's keeping resolute right now as the champion-elect, and Boyd just getting a slight aero wake, I'm sure, around this part of the circuit, and then just doesn't quite take that tight line this time and had to get out to the throttle just marginally. Still close, but just didn't quite carry the speed he wanted that time.
No, and he can't afford to drop off right now. He needs to hang tight, so he's going to have to push through that little bit of understeer moment that he gets at the top of the crest. He's done that perfectly this lap by closes right up onto the back of that Altus Esports car in the hands of James Scott now. They have dropped a little bit of a gap to Jordan Ross, not by much, however, but they are starting to really set some solid lap times, and here comes Boyd with another look, just not close enough into 6.
You can tell what he's going for here, Noi. You can hear how early he's getting on the thoughts, and all he needs to just nail one of these runs, and he's right in line, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He's right there with him. I think he can read the part number on the back of that wing, and he'll be sending Altus an invoice when he finally gets past, because he's there, and every time he puts his foot on the throttle, he's trying to minimize. Bit of a slide there, but he's trying to minimize that wheel spin. He wants to get this move done.
So,
one thing I am noticing from the James Scott car at the moment, it does seem to have a little bit of understeer, which is helping him get the drive through the mid corners. You can see him throw the car in really early on, and it just sticks. It's not wanting to push around like we're seeing with a couple of the others. You see him nice and clean through that inner loop again, and that's just probably that little bit that's helping him right now. Boyd again, big run through turn 5.
Oh, that was good.
Wheel from Scott there, that's not going to help him at all.
That was really good there for Boyd. Surely Scott's going to be offline this time, but no, he keeps on getting to the racing line, and this is incredible racecraft right now from Scott, because he knows when to defend, he knows when to keep it on the racing line, and he's not giving his rival anything at the moment. Absolutely nothing. Ross is all over the back of these guys, but honestly, I think probably Ross's best strategy would just to be let these guys battle it out, not try to put off Boyd too much, because I'm sure Ross would love to get a race win, as this is definitely the closest Boyd has been. He can't get any closer than this. Can he get the turn in this time? Yes, he can, and he will surely be alongside down into the chicane. Scott went defensive once before, and he'll have to go defensive again. To the outside goes Boyd. This is what we saw earlier on, and he should get a really good launch, but it's single file around this part of the circuit. Boyd tries to get onto the inside. He almost got the cutback through the mid parts of the chicane, but it wasn't enough for him. But once again, he's all over the rear wing of that Altus Esports car. And once again, I think Scott's going to be forced offline. Can Boyd go to the outside? He goes to the inside instead, down the inside, but it's not enough. And here comes Ross on the outside. It's not going to work out for Ross. He nearly drops the car, and he does drop the car heavy into the wall on this lap 36 for Jordan Ross. The pole sitter, it was looking like he was going for a podium. He went for the move on Boyd, and it was Davison who just gave him the tap ground.
That was really unfortunate there for Ross, because you could see the way all 3 cars expanded out for that run into turn 6. He had only that one opportunity around the outside there, and there wouldn't have been much contact. I think at the end he finally got touched up by one of those EXG cars, which ultimately has put him in the wall. And it has really opened up our top 2 now. The gap pretty solid between both Scott and Boyd. further back, though, the battle for third now is heating up between the two teammates of Davison and Ratu, and who's potentially going to pick this one up right behind if there is contact between the teammates. And fingers crossed we don't see that, because I would not want to be in the debrief afterwards. But Tom Freer potentially could be in here as well for DPR Racing. We'll just have to keep an eye on that as the laps come to a conclusion.
I think Freer got past Gilliam relatively recently, and the EXG guys surely just keep the position. This would be a good result for them, a third and fourth. I doubt Davison will get a penalty, but there could definitely be something post-race for that incident. Just might deem that he should have slowed up more for the slowing for the slowing Ross. But we're now on to the white flag race. We've completed 147 kilometers. We've only got 3 of them remaining. And for the first time in this race, it looks comfortable for James Scott. 0.8 of a second. He's broken the draft to Boyd. He may have broken Boyd's resistance as well. But honestly, no, even if Jack doesn't win this race, I think this has really been an epic performance. We've seen improvements ever since Phillip Highland. And this has certainly been the culmination of that. And his racecraft today has been fantastic.
Absolutely, he'll be stoked with his run here. Over the past couple of rounds, he's had a fantastic run, and it's good to see him go from strength to strength. So, massive congratulations to Jack Boyd. Might be second, but your win's coming, mate. I can see it on the horizon.
Definitely, but here comes James Scott. This isn't going to be his first win of the season, but it's going to be one of his most difficult. He started on the second row of the grid. He got the lead during the pit stops, but he has had to fend off all the way. James Scott, there's no breaking him. He wins at Watkins Glen, and it's another race victory and surely the title as well. Jack Boyd finishes in second place. It is Danny Davison who ends up in third. And it's a very close field after that late pace cut. Greg Sharp can't quite get past Modric across the line. But Daniel, we've seen some good battles this season. I think Haber versus Scott has been really good in the enduros that we've witnessed so far this season. But I honestly think that Scott versus Boyd battle that might just take the mantle for this season.
Yeah, that was an absolute fantastic battle to finish this race out. And like I say, we've seen some fantastic fights through up and down the field over the course of this championship, especially for the lead. But that was absolute ripper there to finish it off. You've got to feel, though, for Jordan Ross gets caught up, drops a long way down as a result of that. But between Scott, Boyd and Ross, they were hands down the class of the field tonight with not only the pace, the consistency, the anger, aggression. They had it all in spades tonight. It's just unfortunate we saw that conclusion there. But I mean, take nothing away from not only our winner, second place in Boyd and third David Davison. Those guys all put a fantastic run out there tonight.
So you might just see a replay actually of that Ross incident when Davison just went into the back of him. So there was the move from Boyd, and it was just a bit late. And I did say a couple of laps previously how I didn't think it was going to be worth Ross battling with those guys, probably worth just laying them to it. And I know, I guess he couldn't have predicted that. It's worth going for second place, and that was a bit of contact. Nothing wrong from Boyd, and to be fair to Davison, that just slowing up so much there was Ross, and into the back end. The stewards will decide if any action is needed on that front. But we've got all the drivers across the line then. I think we can go through the final results then from this round 15 of the Acuta AOSC Super Series. And it is going to be then James Scott again winning out. I've said that a few times this season. Jack Boyd finishes in second place, 0.8 of a second behind, but it was so much closer than that. But he had 2 good chances where he managed to get Scott offline, but apart from that, it was just too good from James. Danny Davison finishes on the podium. Bradley with 2 good drive from him in 4th. There's Adam Briggs, Tom Freer, Andrew Gilliam. Disappointing round for Gilliam, just didn't have the pace, which is unusual for him. Thomas Hinds finishes in 8th. There's Marlon McMullen, Ross Rizzo, Jamie McKnight, Brian Borg, Rob Bowden, Jamie Stovald. Good recovery actually from Carl Stokes there in 15th. Then it's Jet Bennett, David Kimmond, Shay Thomas, Chris Barnes, who was up 19 places. Then it's David Coleman, Andrew Modric, Greg Sharp, Michael Taliancic, Brady Scott, Jamie Dyke, Simon Bayer, Michael Whiting, Nathan Tregarthen, Marty Hansen, Tony Gaffer, Blake Delaney, Todd Parks, Luke Holland, Jordan Ross after that late crash, Paul Switzer, of course. Blair Walton was in 35th. There was Mark Dillell, Josh Morgan, David Walk, Scott Gamble, Roy Clark, and Dave Baldock. The retirees were Craig Jones, Jacob Knights, Matthew Deere, Jackson Barry, and Matt Morris. Nick also, of course, was the safety car driver. So the interviews then with the drivers, and there's only one man that we can start off having a chat with, and that is James Scott, because it is another race victory, James. But that was one of the most tricky, I imagine. I was just saying how that was possibly the battle of the season. Jack pushed you incredibly hard there.
Yeah, that was. I'm sure that was a really good race for the viewers, and it felt just as good being involved in it. That was a very awesome race. I don't think I quite had the pace this week, which is a little bit annoying. So I'll have to work on that for the last round at Bathurst. But that was to come away with the win. A bit unexpected this week, but that was an awesome battle.
So in the first stint, of course, you started in third place. You were running in third place for that entire first stint, and it seemed like you managed to save more fuel than the two drivers ahead of you. Would you say that it seemed like first place was almost a bit of a curse out there? You didn't want to be kind of leading the train because the slipstream was so powerful, and the position that you were in seemed to be the perfect place to be.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up, I think. First place, obviously, we saw there in the second stint. It's quite hard to pull away. So obviously, I know Jordan would have been feeling that in the first stint. But yeah, I was just able to save some fuel and play the strategy right. And luckily enough, came out in front of two guys which were ahead, Jordan and Jack. And yeah.
We saw a late second safety car out there. I found it quite interesting how you decided to pretty much do the exact same restart as you did from the first pace car. What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I sort of went with the idea of if I do the same, we won't be expecting it, to be honest. So I went with the two same. I went pretty much as early as you can. I definitely seen the post that this series put up on Facebook about where you can restart the race with the safety car, so I used that to full advantage.
Definitely, and now we've got one more round of the championship to go. I mean, safe to say, I think you got it in the bag now, to be honest, from this point with the drop scores. But I'm sure you'd love to win out for Altus, because I'm not sure if you've won a team race so far for Altus. That'd be quite nice for you to finish the season like that.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking to a few of the guys that I'm mates with in this series just before the race, and they said that all I had to do was finish tonight to have the championship. So I'm going off what they said. I think it's over, but that could be wrong. And there's always something to play for in these races, so it's not like we won't be putting in our full effort for next week at Bathurst.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations, James, on another race victory. Is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out to before we say goodbye?
Obviously all our great sponsors, Logitech G, Altus Esports, obviously Logitech G, Astro Gaming, Motem Simulations, Cube Controls, all the AOSC admin for putting on a great series, and you guys for putting on a great broadcast. And obviously a shout out to Jordan and Jack for putting on an awesome race as well. That was one of the best I've been involved in.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having a chat with us, James, and best of luck for next week.
Thanks, guys.
So that was your race winner today, James Scott for Altus Esports. Daniel, I believe we have Jack Boyd standing by.
Yeah, Jack Boyd, congratulations, mate. Second place tonight. You had an absolutely fantastic run. First off, having a solid battle with Jamie, the Synergy Sim Racing car there of Jordan Ross, but then to find yourself in a fantastic scrap to close out the race with James Scott. How was it from your point of view?
Yeah, for sure. That was probably my best race of the season, I think. Very enjoyable. Unfortunately, Jordan had a little off. I think probably a racing incident, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, very enjoyable race. Yeah,
it looked like just Jordan ran the tyre out a little bit, caught the dirt. ultimately got spun around. So I don't think any issues there to come as far as race control is concerned there. But for yourself, what was your main goal? Obviously, we had 2 safety cars tonight. Didn't quite get the jump on the initial one. The second one, right up against the back of James Scott. And we saw right at the conclusion there, you were in it to win it. Did you think you found the spot where you could have got a move done on him tonight?
Yeah, for sure. It's been great to finally have the pace to battle for the first position. And the main goal with the safety car was to obviously be with him, stay in the draft, and it paid off. Really good race.
And what have you guys found in the car? Because I mean, we've seen over the course of the championship, the Gone Rogue Motorsport cars have progressively worked their way up towards the front. I think it was Phillip Island we were commenting on, where you had a fantastic run there. I believe it was second place at that point. But you guys have really come on strong for the final half of the championship. Is there something in the car that you found that's really suited your driving style that's helped with this now?
I'm not really too sure, to be honest. I think it's just we've all been on doing laps every day of the week pretty much, and just playing with lots of things we haven't done before, and we've found a lot of things that have worked.
Fantastic. And then next week we go to the conclusion of the championship. We're off to Bathurst, 650 Ks. We know the endurance for you guys has been very good so far in these cars. Are you looking forward to that? And what are your expectations coming in to finish off this championship?
Yeah, 100%. It should be a great race. Everyone loves Bathurst. For us, me and Damo will be aiming for the podium, and hopefully we have a good one.
Fantastic, mate. Well, we wish you all the best. Again, congratulations on a fantastic run tonight, coming home in second place for Gone Rogue Motorsport. But before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out and a thanks to?
Yeah, again, all the boys at Gone Rogue Motorsports for helping with the sets and always been on to practice. Team sponsors MSS, Fred Bella Crash, KSW Painting. Thanks, guys.
Fantastic, mate. And again, look forward to catching up with you potentially at Bathurst in a week's time.
Yeah, for sure. Cheers, guys.
Jack Boyd there, second place driver. Another stellar result for him. We're going to have one more interview then. And we've got Danny Davison in the comms box.
Sure do, Danny. It was a fantastic run for you tonight to get third. I thought you might have been a bit of a dark horse coming out of the pit stop sequence. Just run us through your night.
Overall, I thought it was pretty uneventful. I just sort of sat back behind the top 3, sort of just watched the show. I thought my pace was better during the long run. Like at the end of the stint, I was catching up to them. But then the safety cars sort of stuffed that up in the second stint, so I couldn't really do too much. Just after the restarts.
Yeah, the restart, both the EXG cars seemed to get left behind a little bit there. Was it just not reading the start rider, or did you think James would go a bit later?
I wasn't sure exactly, just the bad timing. I guess I wasn't used to it, and struggled a bit on the cold tyres as well, I think, compared to those other guys. So lost a bit of time there, I guess. Yeah, something to work on.
And then the awkward bump with Jordan Ross at the end there really left you with nowhere to go, but you ended up getting a podium out of it.
Yeah, I was expecting a bit of contact and biffo between those guys, and it eventually happened. And I was able to capitalise. I couldn't basically go anywhere. I had no choice but to tap Jordan, unfortunately. But got my first podium, I think, from memory in this series. So it's good progress. I'm happy with the result. And team's result as well. Bradley had a strong race.
Yeah, both the cars were there. Are you looking forward to Bathurst next round?
Not really, because I usually struggle at Bathurst and it's a really tough track. But might have to put in some extra practice laps. But we'll see how we go.
Anyone you want to thank tonight here, mate?
Just like to thank the boys of the team. EXG sort of got the car working pretty good this weekend. And Natrad radiators, and
Thanks so much, Danny. Have a good one.
No worries. See you next round.
So Danny Davison there for EXG Motorsports. Really good performance from him to get another podium. So we've got one more round of the championship. Romania course, and I think it's a circuit called Bathurst. Yeah, that one. Got a little bit of history in supercars racing. So that's going to be absolutely epic. The drivers going to know that place like the back of their hand. So certainly check that one out. That will also be an endurance race. So 650 kilometers, and everyone who's watched the previous few endurance races, they have been absolutely phenomenal. Some of the best races we've seen all season. So certainly do tune in for that one. We really recommend it. That will be on at pretty much the same time next week. Of course, if you have enjoyed this video, please do leave a like on it, and of course also thanks to all the sponsors for this championship as well. Acuta Solutions, who do rigging hardware and also safety equipment. Next Level Racing, who do flight cockpits along with sim racing cockpits as well. Britsu Raceware doing real racing gear, but also custom sim racing gear as well. Motum Simulations, who have VR racing centres across Australia. Night Rider Design, so if you're looking to get a livery for your team or for yourself on iRacing, certainly do recommend going to Night Rider Designs. They do some fantastic stuff. Wolf Graphics, you have personal stickers and signs. Sam Blacklock Media will be doing the race highlight photos as well. Check them out on the AOSC Facebook page. And of course, thanks to the admins, and thanks as well to the drivers. And thanks for you for tuning in. If you have enjoyed this video, do leave a like on it, and also subscribe to the iRacing Esports Network, because there's plenty more supercar stuff coming up, along with plenty of other forms of motorsport. So certainly do subscribe for that and turn on notifications. And also, if you wouldn't mind, please do check out Apex Racing TV as well, because we've got loads of broadcasts. Honestly, I counted it the other day. We had 28 broadcasts on our channel yesterday. So that is enough reason to sign up. I'm sure there is something to quench your racing thirst. So certainly do go to Apex Racing TV, and also check out our social media as well on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram as well. But for now, from me, from Daniel, from Nori, and from Scott, we are going to say goodbye, and we will see you back for the season finale of the Acuta AOSC Super Series next week at Bathurst. See you then.